They're Elon. They're Alexandria. And they're Rashida. They are people. They are our colleagues.
How dare you take or attempt to take something that does not belong to you because you're selfish and because you feel that you deserve it? That's not America. We banded together to share our narrative because a lot of Black men on Capitol Hill are not allowed to speak up. A lot of people of color on Capitol Hill are not allowed to speak up. A lot of staff are not allowed to speak up.
On January 6th, the first thing that I said when I woke up was, I don't feel good about this day.
I was going to work because I wanted to witness history. It would have been my first time for me seeing Congress ratify a presidential election.
We had been made aware that there was going to be protesters, and working on Capitol Hill, you're no stranger to, protests.
I remember the second that Donald Trump said, we're going to march down to the Capitol and I'll be there with you.
We're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I love Pennsylvania Avenue. And we're going to the Capitol.
My boss and I hurriedly got back to our office. As we're going, we encountered a Capitol police officer whose radio was up, and they basically sent out this sobering message that all Capitol police officers get to your posts immediately.
And we got the notice to hunker down into our office and lock the doors. And I'm a staffer. I have a badge, but I don't have privilege to walk on the House floor or the Senate floor. And that's when we knew then that it was serious.
Seeing that these were military trained insurrectionists that were feet away from us still makes me pause. It still alarms me, and it still, to a certain extent, it scares me. I still kind of hide my badge now, because you just never know.
These people were openly walking their Confederate flags down Pennsylvania Avenue from the White House to the Capitol, and proudly walking this Confederate flag in a building that was built by slaves. It was just shocking.
As we saw them breach the Capitol in places that are strategically hidden because of the capacity or the gravity of the elected official who occupies that space. Seeing them and knowing I have friends in those offices that are hiding and praying for their lives that was what was concerning in that moment. My mom saying, "Oh my goodness, I'm watching CNN. Are you okay? Text me now. Call me. Call me."
This is from my father. He said, "Michael, I love you, and I hope that you're safe. I'm watching this on TV right now. And we're just making sure that you and the Congresswoman and your staff are safe. Please be safe, son, and call us when you can."
Are you still safe? Call me. Call me. Are you okay? Are you still safe? Are they still there? I love you. Kind of hit a heartstring right there a little bit.
You don't want to let them know that this is a stressful moment for you, but also as a comms person, a comms director, it's still our job to work for the American people and to make sure that this story is getting out there and that they're getting constant updates. So I was still working while everything was happening.
It's kept me busy with the Congresswoman being an impeachment manager, because I still have not been able to thoroughly take in what has happened. Like I tell some of my friends, PTSD is real.
There was a moment with during the impeachment when Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett laid out the new model. It just makes me constantly think, what if they had gotten to us? What if they weren't stopped? What if we had lost our democracy? Because that was a considerable force, a considerable effort made to overturn our democracy. And it truly shows you how fragile our democracy is. Let me be very clear. The Black Lives Matter movement is in response to the murder and the lack of value placed on Black lives. That is where the anger and anguish has arisen from, right? This insurrection was based, one, on a lie. It's not founded in truth at all. And even if it was, it's based on a lost election, right? Like, you can't conflate the fact that unarmed human beings that happen to be Black are being gunned down in the street to the fact that your pick for president, who didn't do a particularly amazing job at that, wasn't reelected. People will quickly dilute an experience or restructure an experience to favor a specific demographic of people and make light of a situation that was deadly.
I do not want it to be watered down, right? It should be told as true as it happened, right? It was a domestic terror attack. Oral history is extremely important, and it's important to tell these stories so they're not forgotten. So, I'll tell it, and I'll tell it as many times as I need to for as many people to hear, not just in this country, but abroad as well, because moments like this are not just a blurb on TV. It's not going to just go away. People have to live with this trauma for the rest of their lives.
How dare you? How dare you take or attempt to take something that does not belong to you because you're selfish and because you feel that you deserve it? That's not America. And don't adorn yourself with the title of patriot anymore. People lost their lives. People died. People took their lives. Trauma compounds because y'all lost. You would inflict this type of pain on fellow Americans. Shame on you.
When I woke up that day, I was actually really excited because it was supposed to be like a really good day because I had picked out my own clothes, and for someone who was 7, that was a big deal. And later that day, when we were gonna go out to recess, Mrs. Clements used to have us give us each a turn to hold her walkie-talkie while we walked out, and it was my day. So I was so excited. But I remember getting to school and being at morning meeting, and this is kind of when it all unfolded. So we were all in a circle, saying good morning and stuff, waiting for the loudspeaker. And then I guess it just happened, the gunshots. But I just remember someone saying cubbies, and we all just ran to the cubbies. I remember someone knocked over a chair or something because we were all moving so quickly. I was wedged into the cubbies, and our door was right there. And then the cubbies were pressed up on the other side of the door because there was a little wall. And so from the door, you couldn't really see the cubbies until you walked fully into the classroom. I remember all of us being really quiet, but really loud at the same time. Because we were all sobbing, and it was just so loud, but we were trying so hard to be quiet. And I remember we could hear the footsteps of the firemen on the roof, and it freaked us out so badly. Because in our mind, we didn't really know what was going on. We kind of just figured oh no, someone else is out to get us, on the roof. All of that was over the loudspeaker too. So we could hear everything going on. The reason the loudspeaker was on is because Mrs. Hawksprung was trying to warn us, but then she got shot. And so we just kind of heard more gunshots, obviously. We heard all the loud noises and stuff, and the static of the speaker. I remember the static of the speaker really well. There was 2 doors. One was the one next to the cubbies, like I said, and then one was across the classroom that connected to another classroom. And I just remember being so afraid of that other door that maybe he would come in through that other classroom and go into our room. Mrs. Clements dragged over a desk, and she was trying to read to us with a book, and she was holding it up, but her hands were just shaking a lot, and so it was really hard to just stay calm. And I remember her calling 911, and I remember her going out into the hallway and pulling 2 first graders from the hallway. We even pulled over the stuffed animals that we had, because we had a little farm for our stuffed animals, and we were trying to calm each other down. how long it was, but I remember when the police finally knocked on the door, we all just like screamed no. Like I didn't even process what was going on. I just remember myself screaming no, and like so many other people just being like, no, please, like don't open the door. And when they finally opened the door, the police came and got us, and they told us to line up and put our hands on the person in front of us shoulders and close our eyes, and then they let us out of the building. And I know a few of my friends didn't close their eyes, and like they're still so scarred because they saw like their classmates, I guess. And we didn't know if the guy was still alive. We didn't know if he was still roaming the halls. I was like, where's my sister? Where's my sister? And I would go up to every single policeman, and I was sobbing on them, and I was just like falling all over them, being like, where is my sister? Do you know if my sister's alive? Like, please help me find my sister. And I remember I actually met up with my my friend who's still my best friend then, who's still my best friend now. And then we went off and we finally found my sister in her classroom full of kindergartners with her teacher. And I remember just like finding her and my best friend was like the most relieved I've ever been in my entire life. I remember giving her the biggest hug. I remember my mom was at the grocery store, so she like didn't get there till like the very end, and I was like, where's my mom? Like, why is my mom not here? It was just a whole lot of anxiety that I had never felt as a 7-year-old. I had hardly even felt sadness. Everything was just different now. Like everything was just sad and scary, and like it kind of like made us realize like the world's not like all sunshine and rainbows, I guess. Like it's not everything our childhood had been up to that far. Even though it was 8 years ago, like that doesn't make it any better. And the fact that it was 8 years ago and still very little has changed is so unacceptable. And the thing about like this trauma, and specifically because we were so young, you don't really grow away from it. You kind of grow around it. As you grow up, it like moves with you. And so like I remember like a couple years ago I was in middle school, and so during middle school I had to go through all of that all over again because my mind is maturing and I'm growing up. I had to just like kind of realize like what had happened to me and like all these things, and like I have PTSD from the shooting, you know, like I have a lot of my anxiety started from 12-14. Like that's where a lot of bad emotions came from. And there's a lot of survivor's guilt too. Just like thinking like somehow as like a 7-year-old I was supposed to do something. Like obviously like I know I couldn't have, but that doesn't change the fact that I felt like I should have been able to. Or like maybe like I didn't deserve some of the pity that was given to me because I didn't lose anyone myself, or I wasn't shot myself. For them to say like that this just didn't happen, for it to be a hoax, for them to be paid actors or something, it's so invalidating. It is incredibly invalidating to everything our community has gone through, to everything other communities have gone through. I can't give you proof except for my trauma, except for like the letters people wrote to us, except for like the fact that I actually went to that school, you know? I can't even express how angry, how emotional that makes me. He understands what losing a child is like, and he understands the amount of trauma and like pain that comes behind losing a child. So I think for him to like be able to connect to that is so like powerful, because he can make a difference. And I think a big thing I would tell him is just not give up on us, you know, not give up on the idea of like you can't change, because like if he pushes hard enough and if we continue to fight long enough and hard enough, things will change.
I heard about motherhood today. 2 of those women, between them, have 6 children. They're mothers. One of them does not have children. And she's come to this body asking for more housing for people, for more health care for people, for more income for people. How awful. And they're not the squad. They're Ilan. They're Alexandria. And they're Rashida. They are people. They are our colleagues. And yes, you may have disagreements. But I don't know anybody, including Steve King, who you precluded from going on committees, for much less. And this is an AR-15 in the hands of Miss Green. This was on Facebook just a few months ago. That is a message of peace and reconciliation and peaceful democratic dialogue. The squad's worst enemy, AR-15, in hand.
Sounds like the guns I fled.
I have never, ever seen that before. Is this a precedent-setting event? It is. Because the conduct, the tweeting, the QAnon association, I heard the disavowal of QAnon, I learned more. AR-15, squad's worst nightmare. Is that what was intended to do? That each one of these ladies would have a nightmare about somebody with a gun. An AR-15 can carry up to a clip of 60 bullets. I urge my colleagues to look at that image and tell me what message you think it sends. Here she is, armed with a deadly assault rifle, pointing it toward 3 Democratic members. Now, the pictures are put together, you understand. They were not present. I understand that. And she captioned it, the squad's worst nightmare. Yes, some people are having nightmares and fear. And some people who wanted to give other people nightmares committed sedition and broke into the House of Representatives and tried to stop us electing a president of the United States. These 3 faces are real people. There are 3 reasons we're here. But there are many other reasons we're here today. In 2019, during the same election cycle in which she ran, showed support for comments online that the quickest way to remove Speaker Pelosi from power would be, and I quote, a bullet to the head. Did any of you hear Steve King say anything like that? You removed him from all of his committees. But as I said, you did nothing. As a matter of fact, gave a standing ovation, as I understand. I wasn't there. What message does that send? What message does it send to have a standing ovation to give these 3 women nightmares? Indisputably, these are clear threats to commit or incite political violence. Not from years ago, but just months ago. Imagine the pain that these members' families must be experiencing when they see pictures like this one. Imagine what our children think, their children, or when they know their loved ones are walking the halls of Congress and may encounter harassment as it happened to Representative Bush. So I ask my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, when they take this vote, imagine your faces on this poster. Imagine it's a Democrat with the 8 or 15. Imagine what your response would be, and would you think that that person ought to be held accountable? But when acquiescence to the suggestion of violence or any kind is allowed to go unchecked, it is a cancer that metastasizes on the body politic of our nation, as we saw just a few days ago on the 6th of January. A cancer. That's how Senate Republican leader McConnell described it. He said loony lies and conspiracy theories are a cancer for the Republican Party and our country. McConnell, should we stand silent in the face of that kind of activity? He continued, somebody who suggests that perhaps no airplane hit the Pentagon on 9/11, that horrifying school shootings were pre-staged, and that the Clintons crashed JFK Jr.'s airplane is not living in reality. It's not me talking. It's not a Democrat talking. It's Senator McConnell. This has nothing to do with the challenges facing American families or the robust debates on substance that can strengthen our parties. My colleagues across the aisle have an opportunity today to reclaim their party from the dangerous cancer of QAnon and violent conspiracy theories that promote and have demonstrably resulted in sedition and insurrection. Senator Romney, you remember Senator Romney? He was candidate for President of the United States on the Republican ticket, nominated in the Republican convention. He said of his party this week, I think we should have nothing to do with Marjorie Taylor Greene and think we should repudiate the things she said and move away from her. Our big tent is not large enough to both accommodate conservatives and kooks. Not my word, his words. A Republican member of the United States Senate. Now, he's not a big buddy of Trump's, so apparently he didn't have to do what Trump suggested he do. And Senator Ernst, conservative woman from Iowa, she doesn't represent the party. I don't want her to be the face of our party. I think this is a great time for us to really talk about what we want to see in the upcoming years and continue to build. We don't need people that are promoting violence or anything like that. That's a Republican conservative senator. Republican senator and former governor of Florida, Rick Scott, said, a conservative Republican senator. That's not what the Republican Party stands for. Let me suggest to you, if it's not, vote with us. Vote with the House, not Democrats. Vote with the House of Representatives. Vote with good order and peace. Furthermore, Senator Young of Indiana said, there ought to be no place in the Republican Party for the kind of views espoused by Representative Greene. That's what McCarthy said when you kicked King off all of his committees. This is not something you haven't done. However, sadly, you left it to us to do your job. Representative Cole called her statements extraordinarily disturbing. He said that yesterday. It's an old quote. And Senator Thune asked his fellow Republicans in the House, do they want to be the party of limited government? I think the answer to that is yes. Or do they want to be the party of conspiracy theories and QAnon? Furthermore, Senator Young of Indiana said, there ought to be no place in the Republican Party for the kind of views espoused by Representative Greene. That's what your Republican colleagues have said. This is not partisan. This is about principle. And you can shake your head as much as you want. This is not about party. It's about whether or not you will vote for decency and truth, not being members' worst nightmare. I hope we can do it together. All of us embracing our humanity and our basic adherence to the Constitution. Edmund Burke, who I'd quoted earlier, said, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. Let us not do nothing. I often share another passage spoken so long ago by Edmund Burke when a new member arrives to serve in the House. It concerns the duty of a representative has to his or her constituents. His conclusion on that matter is that we owe them our unbiased opinion, mature judgment, and enlightened sense of conscience. What does your conscience tell you to do in light of this kind of assertion? Nothing? Burke told his own constituents that these virtues a representative does not derive from your pleasure, nor from the law and the Constitution. They are trust from providence, for the abuse of which you are deeply answerable. Your representative owes you not his industry only, but his judgment, and he betrays it instead of serving you if he sacrifices it to your opinion. This is not about polling. This is not about your base. This is about your conscience and your moral judgment. In other words, each of us ought to look inside our hearts to the answer we know is right and is best for the House and for our country. If the Republican Party, for less toxic language, took committee assignments away from Steve King, should they do less in this instance? There is no doubt that if somebody came to the Congress and had said before they came to Congress, I am for violent revolution against the government of the United States of America, that your party would say that's not somebody we want to be associated with. That's not what she said. I do not assert that. But should we do less than you did for Steve King, for far less toxic language? Let us not do nothing. Mr. Speaker, let us do the right thing.
We will stop the steal. Today I will lay out just some of the evidence proving that we won this election, and we won it by a landslide. This was not a close election. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
Yeah!
Take the Capitol.
Take the Capitol.
Take the Capitol.
We are going to the Capitol, where our problems are. It's that direction. Everybody in! This way!
Tens of thousands of votes. They came in duffel bags. Where the hell did they come from?
Madam Speaker, the Vice President and the United States Senate.
Off the sidewalk.
Stand up for him. Stand up for him. We outnumber you 1,000,000 to 1 out here, dude.
Take the building! Take the building! Fuck these kids. Join us! That's enough! There's much more coming!
The Constitution says you have to protect our country, and you have to protect our Constitution. And you can't vote on fraud. And fraud breaks up everything, doesn't it? When you catch somebody in a fraud, you're allowed to go by very different rules. So I hope Mike has the courage to do what he has to do.
Talk about you,
And we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
Fuck you, Fuck you,
So we're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I love Pennsylvania Avenue. And we're going to the Capitol. And we're going to try and give our Republicans, the weak ones, because the strong ones don't need any of our help, we're going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country.
Get the fuck out of here, you traitors!
Majority Leader.
We're debating a step that has never been taken in American history. President Trump claims the election was stolen. The assertions range from specific local allegations to constitutional arguments to sweeping conspiracy theories. But my colleagues, nothing before us proves illegality anywhere near the massive scale that would have tipped the entire election.
Fuck you, police!
My challenge today is not about the good people of Arizona.
And it will stand in recess until the call of the chair.
We'll pause.
Protesters are in the building.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, can I have order in the chamber?
The House will be in order. The House will be in order. Okay.
Where the fuck are they?
There's gotta be something in here we can fucking use against these scumbags.
That's what we fucking need to have 30,000 guns up here. That's what we need. Let's go! Let's go! Take it! Take it out! Use the shield! Use the shield! Use the shield! We need fresh patriots abroad!
There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel, but go home and go home in peace.
Senators, the president was impeached by the U.S. House of Representatives on January 13th for doing that. You ask what a high crime and misdemeanor is under our Constitution? That's a high crime and misdemeanor. If that's not an impeachable offense, then there is no such thing.
Marjorie Taylor Greene needs to serve no functional role in our Congress. She has beliefs or lies around what happened in Sandy Hook, Las Vegas, 9/11, and yet, while her entire life is a lie about reality, she believes that because of my last name, I'm in possession of a laser that starts forest fires. You know, you can't make this stuff up. It's crazy stuff. And she sits on the Education Committee. That's where the Republicans put her. I'm a dad. I'm part of no mob. I'm a dad whose daughter died because I sent her to school. okay? I'm not part of a mob, okay? However, there is a mob that wants to shut me up. It's not gonna happen. It's gonna be 3 years since my daughter was killed. The idea that we have to relitigate whether or not she was killed, the idea that I have to prove my daughter is in a cemetery, the idea that the other Sandy Hook families, Las Vegas families, 9/11 families have to prove this, it is infuriating.
The so-called plane that crashed into the Pentagon. It's odd, there's never any evidence shown for a plane in the Pentagon.
There is, of course, plenty of evidence of American Airlines Flight 77 with 58 passengers and a crew of 6 crashing into the Pentagon on 9/11.
Her denial of reality, her denial of facts, her lies about reality and facts should not have a place in Congress. What really is concerning is the failure of the entire Republican establishment to disown her.
Q is a patriot. We know that for sure. I don't know who Q is, but I'm just going to tell you about it because I think it's something worth listening to.
While I'm exceptionally angry at her for not apologizing, for not disowning anything she has said, for in fact doubling down and saying I'm being attacked and then fundraising off of her lies, I'm even angrier at people like Kevin McCarthy and the others in the Republican establishment who have not forced it, who have not even said a word about it, who are willing to live with the lie because they are so weak. The Republican Party has now become a party that is so afraid of a cult that they refuse to do the work of America. They refuse to do what this country needs. They refuse to work in the realm of facts. We all should have listened more closely to Kellyanne Conway a few years ago when she said, we believe in alternative facts. That is their base now. It dabbles in alternative facts. That is the way they roll. It's not a few bad eggs. And I'm not sure that I would say it's the conservative movement. It's this current version of the Republican Party is what it is. It's been taken over by extremists. I think January 6th, we saw how letting a lie go unanswered resulted in that insurrection. Lies matter. And so we need to fight back with the truth.
Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and the fake news media truly are the enemy of the American people.
I have no expectation that people are always going to agree with me or I'm going to agree with them. But the causticness, the disgusting approach, the lies, that's indecent. It's uncivil. It's bad for democracy.
There's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to take this global cable of Satan-worshiping pedophiles out.
It's really simple. Tell the truth. Talk civilly. Stop with the caustic language. Stop demonizing. Stop making people you disagree with sound like they are less than you are. And if the only approach you have to governing is demonizing or dishonesty, then you shouldn't be governing. I just want to tell Marjorie Taylor Greene to stop playing in the snow and to stop writing in the snow and to write out her resignation letter. She's done enough damage.
And it was just more than a coincidence. It was really interesting.
While Vice President Pence presided over the joint session, Trump supporters began their assault on our Capitol. Radio communications from the Metropolitan Police Department highlight how during and following President Trump's speech, Trump supporters descended on the Capitol and became increasingly violent. What you are about to hear has not been made public before.
Multiple capital entries! Multiple capital entries!
1318.
Hey, 12 to 50, we're coming around from the south side.
Be advised the speech ended.
Intel 1, be advised you got a group of about 50 charging up the hill on the west front.
Right, just north of the stairs. They're approaching the wall now.
They're starting to dismantle the reviewing stands and throwing metal poles at us. Cruiser 50, give me DSO up here now! DSO! Multiple law enforcement entries! DSO, get up here! Alright, we're 30 seconds out. Yeah, we need some reinforcements up here now. They're starting to pull the gates down. They're throwing metal poles at us. Cruiser 50, DSO, get up here! Okay, we're here. 12 to 50, we're here. We just had an explosion go on up here. I don't know if it's fireworks or what, but they're starting to explode explosives. It's fireworks material.
Now we're going to show you, through security footage that has not been made public before, what that same breach looked like from the inside. Now, because this is security footage, there's no sound. Note, as the video begins, we are seeing the inside view as the mob approaches from outside and beats the windows and doors. You can see that the rioter first break the window with the wooden beam that you saw previously, and a lone police officer inside responds and begins to spray the first man who enters, but is quickly overwhelmed. I want you to pay attention to the first group of assailants as they break into the building. The second man through the window is wearing full tactical body armor and is carrying a baseball bat. Others are carrying riot shields. Among this group are members of the Proud Boys, some of whom, like Dominic Pizzola, who was recently indicted on federal conspiracy charges we will discuss later. Can watch where they're coming on our model as well. You all may have seen footage of Officer Goodman previously, but there's more to his heroic story. In this security footage, you can see Officer Goodman running to respond to the initial breach. Officer Goodman passes Senator Mitt Romney and directs him to turn around in order to get to safety. On the first floor, just beneath them, the mob had already started to search for the Senate chamber. Officer Goodman made his way down to the first floor, where he encountered the same insurrectionists we just saw watch breach the Capitol. As the rioters reached the top of the stairs, they were within 100 feet of where the Vice President was sheltering with his family. And they were just a feet away from one of the doors to this chamber, where many of you remained at that time. I also want to show you a different angle from the security footage of Officer Goodman's acts. This video is on the second floor of the Senate wing of the Capitol. The red dot, as you recall, represents the insurrectionists. The blue dot is Officer Goodman, who led the mob away from the chamber just minutes earlier. On the left-hand side of the video, just inside the hallway, is the door to the Senate chamber. And watch how Officer Goodman provokes the rioters and purposefully draws them away from the door to the Senate chamber and towards the other officers waiting down the hall. The rioter seen carrying a baseball bat in this video is the same one we saw moments ago breaching the window on the first floor. While all of this was going on, Vice President Pence was still in the room near the Senate chamber. It was not until 2:26 that he was evacuated to a secure location. This next security video shows that evacuation. His movements are depicted by the orange dot in our model. The red and blue dots represents the location where the mob and Officer Goodman were, and where Officer Goodman led the mob away from the chamber just moments ago. You can see Vice President Pence and his family quickly move down the stairs. The Vice President turns around briefly as he's headed down. They were talking about assassinating the Vice President of the United States. During the course of the attack, the Vice President never left the Capitol, remained locked down with his family inside the building. Remember that as you think about these images and the sounds of the attack. The Vice President, our second in command, was always at the center of it. Vice President Pence was threatened with death by the president's supporters because he rejected President Trump's demand that he overturn the election. The mob also went after Speaker of the House, who alongside the Vice President was presiding over the joint session of the certification in the House chamber. The Capitol Police deemed the threat so dangerous that they evacuated her entirely from the Capitol complex, rushing her to a secure off-site location. The insurrectionist intent to murder the Speaker of the House is well documented in charging documents that are now available. We know from the rioters themselves that if they had found Speaker Pelosi, they would have killed her. About the same time, Capitol Police announced that Capitol had been breached. Speaker Pelosi's staff heeded the call to shelter in place. On our model, you can see the rioters in the rotunda in red and the Speaker's office again in orange. So this is a security video, so there is no sound. As you can see here, the staff moves from their offices through the halls and then enters a door on the right-hand side. That's the outer door of a conference room, which also has an inner door that they barricaded with furniture. The staff then hid under a conference room table in that inner room. This is the last staffer going in and then barricading themselves inside of the inner office. After just 7 minutes of them barricading themselves and the last staffer entering the door on the right, a group of rioters enter the hallway outside. And once inside, the rioters have free reign in the Speaker of the House's offices. In this security video, pay attention to the door that we saw those staffers leading into and going into. One of the rioters you can see is throwing his body against the door 3 times until he breaks open that outer door. Luckily, when faced with the inner door, he moves on. Another rioter later tried, unsuccessfully, to break through that inner door. At this point, the mob had already broken into the Speaker's formal conference room that is in the back of the hall at the top of the video. I want to play some audio we have of the Speaker's staff with the rioters at the door that day. You can hear the terror in their voice as they describe what's happening to them as they are barricaded in that conference room. Please listen carefully, because the staffer is whispering into a phone as he hides from the rioters that are outside the door.
Texting Mike that they're within our hallway. We need Capitol Police, I think, coming to the hallway. They're pounding on doors trying to find her. Yeah.
You can hear the pounding in the background as that staffer is speaking. One of those staffers explained later that they could hear the mob going through her offices, breaking down the door and yelling, "Where are you, Nancy?" The Vice President, the Speaker of the House, the first and second in line to the presidency, were performing their constitutional duties, presiding over the election certification, and they were put in danger because President Trump put his own desires, his own need for power over his duty to the Constitution and our democratic process. President Trump put a target on their backs, and his mob broke into the Capitol to hunt them down.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
We were invited by the President of the United States!
We have come to demand that Congress do the right thing.
Where are the fucking traitors? Drag them out by the fucking hair!
And we fight. We fight like hell.
Donald John Trump engaged in high crimes and misdemeanors by inciting violence against the government of the United States.
Unbelievable fraud.
The only way we're going to lose this election is if the election is rigged. Remember that.
We're not going to lose this except if they cheat.
It's the only way we can lose, in my opinion, is massive fraud.
We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
The number one thing that Donald Trump can do in this election is fight each and every one of these battles to the death.
We are filing in federal district court here in Las Vegas.
We're going to prove to the American people that Arizona is Trump country.
We are going to continue the lawsuit here. We're going to bring a second one. And then we're going to bring a federal lawsuit.
And we are going to question every single ballot that was cast in Georgia.
And the Michigan Republican Party will continue to fight to make sure that this stops occurring in our state.
We've won with the most votes ever cast on a presidential ticket in the history of the nation. 74 million.
It was a rigged election.
I want you to walk us through what happens on January 6th.
On January 6th.
January 6th.
January 6th.
And I hope Mike Pence comes through for us, I have to tell you. I hope that our great vice president comes through for us. He's a great guy. Of course, if he doesn't come through, I won't like him quite as much.
Politicians that we elect uphold those rights, or we will go after them.
That we, American patriots, are going to take America back.
Our country!
We have come to demand that Congress do the right thing.
Where are the fucking traitors? Drag them out by the fucking hair!
Stand up and hold your representatives accountable.
Take me to your traitors! Let's go!
Now, we want those
traitors. Where's that meeting at? Hey, where they count the votes?
Hold your representatives accountable. Make sure that they stood up for election integrity.
You don't stand with us. You stand against us.
Because that's what we do as patriots.
People are cowards. They're not patriots.
It's we fight.
Today is the day American patriots start taking down names and kicking ass.
Keep fighting for America.
We are going to fight for him.
We will never, ever, ever stop fighting.
We will not quit fighting.
Stand up and fight.
Let's have trial by combat.
This fight has only just begun.
We fight like hell, and if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
We don't want war, but we're prepared to fight for our liberty. Handing over this country to the Chi-Coms. May he go under the gallows. I hope he is put under the firing squad and found guilty of treason, because men like him are the reason this country's falling apart.
Can I speak to Pelosi? Yeah, we're coming, bitch. Oh, Mike Pence, we're coming for you too, traitor. Whoa!
We're coming for you, Nancy! Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Treason! 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 Hold the line!
We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. People thought that what I said was totally appropriate.
Donald John Trump engaged in high crimes and misdemeanors by inciting violence against the government of the United States.
Valentine's Day is a big day. Jill's favorite day. For real.
What inspires you to do this?
I just wanted some, joy, and I think things have been, so with the pandemic, just everybody's feeling a little down, so it's just a little joy, a little hope, that's all.
First year of the Vice President. And all you guys in the press walked out of the executive office building. I walked into my office, and every single pane, the Vice President's office, you see those panes, there were 3, 6, 9, 18 panes in each window. She had taken the school kind of paint the kids put on poster boards, put a heart and said, Joe loves Jill. None of them said Jill loves Joe, but they said Joe loves Jill. And everyone. And I went on the next morning. Remember Juju Chang?
I do.
I did an interview with her. She said, I understand that you and your wife have a great love affair. And I said, I hope so. And I said, but everybody knows I love her more than she loves me. And she said, looked me straight in the eye, I said, that's what everybody says.
How do you extend that love story to the American people that are feeling so down right now, so discouraged?
Tell them there is hope. There's hope. You just have to stay strong. A lot of people have gone through unbearable suffering. They've lost their families, lost their children, lost their husbands, wives, moms, dads, and it's almost unbearable. The one thing I can say to them is that they're still in your heart. Think about them in your heart. They really are. It's our experience. They're in your heart.
So we hope this lifted your spirits.
With the stroke of a pen. That's it, a pen. Should we call them out for this hypocrisy? Let's take a look. We'll let you decide.
We are in the land of executive orders.
The president's pen-to-paper blitz.
Executive action frenzy.
Has President Biden gone too far with the executive pen?
John, he's gone way too far.
Why so many? I mean, that's just a disturbing number. Some Americans are worried he's abusing the power of the pen. You don't say.
A lot of policies via executive fiat.
Coming in like a king.
This is monarchy.
Why is Biden doing this? The process is scary. It's all by executive fiat.
I was torn between an orgy of executive orders or an avalanche of executive orders.
There absolutely is a new sheriff in town.
The scoreboard right now is what matters. Executive orders are going to start flying, and these people are going to be like, bing, bing, bing. They're not going to know how to react to all of this.
Last week, he predicted he would be signing 200 executive orders his first week in office.
President Trump's already hit the ground running, like you were saying.
This president, I think, has done as much as he possibly can through executive order and action.
President Trump should immediately issue an executive order.
Trump needs to issue another executive order.
I'm not going to let this moment go by without once again advocating that the President of the United States tonight pick up a pen, sign an executive order.
Joe Biden's executive order bonanza has officially gone overboard.
The work begins. President Trump planning a big week of executive orders this upcoming week.
Joe is literally acting unilaterally. He's doing it all with the stroke of a pen, and its consequences are severe. Action does need to be taken, and the president will be issuing executive orders very soon.
Biden signs executive actions like their high school yearbooks. If I made an action movie about President Trump, I'd call it Executive Action. In a world where presidents did nothing, one man did something.
Joe Biden has been hot and heavy with executive orders.
They pretty much got the Staples truck backed up at the White House. Just new pens for the president.
He is a man of action. He's going to prove it with his pen.
He's going to get out a pen, and he's got a paper. He will sign an executive order. Are you sick of winning?
Right.
It's Winning Wednesday.
If you slap a crisis label on everything, you can do anything you want. And that's what Biden's doing.
Donald Trump just issued an executive order beginning construction of the wall pretty soon. And who's going to pay for the wall, Jacob?
Mexico.
That's what we're hearing. Imagine Jeb, low energy Jeb up here. You probably have one executive order, and that's it.
He is ready to rule by fiat.
He's just going to write an executive fiat. Well, if he couldn't do that on this law, can he do that on any law?
Well, it sounds wrong, and it feels wrong to the American people. They really don't want a king. They don't want an emperor.
He's like Chuck Norris with a pen. It's weird. It's like he's treating this like an actual job.
He's covering all bases here: jobs, trade, executive orders.
He has immense power, and I think what he's already doing with executive orders, there was a time I would have said rein in the imperial presidency.
I watch Biden sign these executive orders like Benito Mussolini.
When you come in and you're in a process of undoing and you're just doing it by executive fiat, that's just going to turn people's stomach right from the get.
Is this any way to govern? That's what some are asking. Is it going to be pen or is it going to be bipartisan legislation?
This is the Free Speech Channel, the last one left in American media.
People of Springfield, because of the epidemic, I have canceled my vacation to the Bahamas. I shall not leave the city. Hey, you! Get that steel drum out of the mayor's office.
Sorry, Mon.
As you know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump.
A lot of people in my industry think asbestos is the greatest fireproofing material ever made.
And now that he's become president, guess what? His EPA has cut back on regulating the stuff, huh?
We demand more asbestos! More asbestos! More asbestos! More asbestos!
Trump's test results were astonishingly excellent, he writes. And if elected, Mr. Trump, I can state unequivocally, will be the healthiest individual ever elected to the presidency.
All of your diseases are in perfect balance.
You might live to be 200 years old, I don't know.
What you're saying is, I'm indestructible.
I'm a very stable genius.
I am smart. I am smart. S-M-R-T.
Australia and the United States are obviously very firm allies. It's pretty extraordinary that this first call between the two leaders ended as it did.
You picked the wrong guy to tangle with here, mate.
I don't think so. You're all the way in Australia. Hey, I think I hear a dingo eating your baby.
Why do we want these people from, quote, all these shithole countries here?
And you know how I feel about hellholes.
President Trump appears to have been the victim of a prank phone call.
I'm looking for a Mrs. O problem. First name B.
Yeah, just a minute, I'll check. B-O problem. B-O problem. Come on, guys, do I have a B.O. problem here?
You sure do!
Mr. President, those young people are about to get a dose of reality.
Trump referred to Bhutan as button and mispronounced Nepal as nipple.
Look at this country. You are gay.
It looks like he broke the one rule of eclipse viewing. Don't look at the sun without your eclipse glasses.
Well, you're certainly doing your job today, Mr. Sun. Oh, rats.
Trump has ordered a review of national monuments in order to see whether or not it makes sense to allow development and drilling on these lands.
Congressman, we want to drill for oil in Teddy Roosevelt's head.
I have figured out how to rejuvenate the show. What we need is a new character.
The Trump administration is expected to name former Trump transition team official Anthony Scaramucci, well known as the Mooch, as White House communications director.
Gotta know, something along the lines of, say, Poochie.
He's edgy. He's in your face.
The profanity-laced tirade by the new communications director to the president, so crude, so profane that much of it we can't even share with you this morning on TV.
Anthony Scaramucci, 10 days after being announced as the White House communications director, is out.
I have to go now. My planet needs me.
Bill Shine is going to join the White House staff. He will serve as assistant to the president. Most recently, he was the co-president of Fox News, also Fox Business.
I've had lots of jobs in my day.
Whale hunter, seal clubber, president of the Fox Network.
The entire thing has been a witch hunt, and there is no collusion.
Now it's time for the Innocence Report with Homer Simpson.
There is absolutely no collusion. That has been proven.
No, I wasn't me.
There is no collusion between me and my campaign and the Russians.
I didn't do it.
I have a good memory and all that stuff, like a great memory.
I remember that meeting, and I have a photographic memory.
Blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah.
For you, it's the president.
Yellow.
President Trump sent a late-night tweet, and here it is. It reads, despite the constant negative press, cough of Fifi.
It's a perfectly cromulent word.
I am officially running.
No!
No!